Welcome back to the Nocturnal Astronomer. I'm Atlas Reed, and this is your channel for the quiet hours. Whether you're drifting towards sleep, settling into a long study session, searching for something calming to focus your mind, or simply letting the universe wash over you as background sound, you've found the right place. We take the grandest stories the cosmos has to offer and bring them to you slowly, gently, with all the wonder they deserve. Tonight, we're turning our gaze to the sky in a very ancient way. Long before telescopes, before satellites, before anyone had mapped a single galaxy, human beings looked up and saw patterns. Not random arrangements of light, but pictures. Stories. A lion crouching in the stars. A scorpion with its tail raised. A great bull standing at the edge of the sky. These were not idle imaginings. They were the result of centuries of careful, meticulous observation by some of the most brilliant minds of the ancient world. Tonight we're exploring the Zodiac, that ancient band of 12 constellations positioned along the sun's yearly path through the heavens. We'll travel through each one, discovering the myths that gave them their names and the real astronomical significance that made them so important to civilizations across the ancient world. From the river valleys of Babylon to the marble temples of Greece, these 12 figures in the sky shaped how humanity understood time, seasons, and its own place in the cosmos. Let's dive in. Part 1, Aries, the Ram. We begin our journey through the 12 constellations at the point on the ecliptic that, for millennia, was considered the starting point of the sky's great cycle. This is the location of the vernal equinox, the moment in spring when day and night are of equal length, and the sun crosses from the southern celestial hemisphere into the northern one. For the ancient world, this crossing was the beginning of the new year, the moment when winter loosened its grip and the world began again. And for roughly 2,000 years, spanning from around 2000 BCE to about 200 CE, this all-important point sat in the constellation Aries, the Ram. Aries is not a grand or visually dramatic constellation. It occupies a modest patch of sky in the northern hemisphere, and its main feature is a small, slightly curved line of 3 bright stars. The brightest of these is Hamal, whose name comes from the Arabic fourth head of the ram. Despite its relative visual simplicity, Aries carried enormous symbolic and astronomical weight in the ancient world, primarily because of its association with the vernal equinox. The Greeks and Romans knew this point as the first point of Aries, and it served as a kind of zero marker for the entire celestial coordinate system. Just as geographers used the Greenwich meridian as the starting point for measuring longitude on Earth, ancient astronomers used the first point of Aries as the starting point for measuring positions in the sky. Even today, astronomers use a coordinate system whose origin is this equinox point, despite the fact that due to a phenomenon called precession, this point has long since drifted out of Aries entirely and now sits in the neighboring constellation Pisces. The label first point of Aries remains in technical use as a historical echo. The myth associated with Aries is one of the most famous in Greek mythology, though it requires a small journey to appreciate. The ram in question is the golden-fleeced ram of Greek legend, the extraordinary creature whose fleece later became the object of Jason and the Argonauts' famous quest. The story begins with a king of Boeotia named Athamas, whose children, Phrixus and Helle, faced mortal danger from a jealous stepmother. To rescue them, the god Hermes, or in some versions the god Zeus himself, sent a magnificent ram with a coat of pure gold to carry the children to safety. The ram flew through the sky, carrying Phrixus and Helle eastward toward the land of Caucasus on the eastern shore of the Black Sea. Tragically, during the flight, Helle lost her grip and fell into the strait that separates Europe from Asia, a stretch of water the Greeks thereafter called the Hellespont, meaning Sea of Helle, known today as the Dardanelles. Phrixus arrived safely in Caucasus, where the grateful King Eets welcomed him. As thanks to the gods for his deliverance, Phrixus sacrificed the golden ram and presented its fleece to Eets, who hung it in a sacred grove guarded by a dragon that never slept. This fleece became the golden fleece of legend, and Zeus placed the ram among the stars as a memorial to the animal's bravery and sacrifice. Hamal, the brightest star in Aries, is an orange giant star located approximately 66 light-years from Earth. It is nearly 15 times larger than our own sun and shines with a warm, amber-tinged light. In ancient Babylonian astronomy, Hamal was known as Lulim, meaning ram in Akkadian, and it was tracked carefully as a seasonal marker. When Hamal rose in the east just before dawn, it signaled the arrival of spring and the beginning of the agricultural year, a signal of enormous practical importance for farming communities throughout the ancient Near East. The second brightest star in Aries, Sheraton, has a name derived from the Arabic for two signs or two stars, referring to Sheraton and its neighbor Mesotheme as a pair. Mesotheme holds a notable place in the history of astronomy. In 1664, Robert Hooke, the English scientist better known for his work in physics, pointed his telescope at this relatively unremarkable-looking star and discovered that it was in fact a double star, two stars orbiting each other and appearing as one to the naked eye. This was one of the earliest recorded discoveries of a binary star system, and it happened in a quiet corner of a constellation that had been watched by human eyes for thousands of years without anyone realizing the nature of what they were seeing. Part 2, Taurus, the Bull. Moving along the ecliptic from Aries, we arrive at one of the oldest and most richly documented constellations in the entire sky. Taurus, the Bull, has been recognized as a bull-shaped figure by cultures ranging from the ancient Mesopotamians to the early Greeks, from the pre-Columbian peoples of the Americas to the cave painters of Paleolithic Europe. Some researchers have argued that a cluster of spots painted on the walls of the Lascaux caves in southern France, dated to approximately 17,000 years ago, may represent the Pleiades star cluster within Taurus. Whether or not this identification holds, the antiquity of the bull image in the sky is extraordinary. For Babylonian astronomers, Taurus marked the location of the vernal equinox during an even earlier period than Aries, roughly from 4000 to 2000 BCE, which may account for the extraordinary reverence the bull seems to have commanded in ancient Near Eastern religious culture. The bull was a sacred animal throughout the ancient world, associated with strength, fertility, and divine power. In Mesopotamia, winged bulls guarded the entrances to temples and palaces. In ancient Crete, the bull occupied the center of the most sacred religious rituals. This celestial bull, permanently frozen in the stars at the boundary of winter and spring, would have seemed to ancient observers like the very engine of seasonal renewal. The most famous feature of Taurus is not a single star but a cluster of stars, the Pleiades, a tight group of young, hot blue stars that have captured human imagination across virtually every culture on Earth. In Greek mythology, the Pleiades were the 7 daughters of the Titan Atlas and the Oceanid Pleione. After Atlas was condemned to hold up the sky for eternity, Zeus took pity on his daughters and transformed them into stars so they could keep their father company. The cluster appears to contain 7 main stars, though most observers with good eyesight under dark skies can distinguish 6, and under excellent conditions some people can perceive as many as 14. The 7th Pleiad, in various Greek myths, is said to have hidden herself in shame either because she married a mortal while her sisters married gods, or out of grief over the fall of Troy. The Pleiades served as one of the most important seasonal markers in the ancient world. Their heliacal rising, the morning when they first become visible in the east just before dawn after being hidden by the sun's glare, traditionally signaled the start of the sailing season in the Mediterranean, the beginning of the harvest in various agricultural traditions, and the opening of the ceremonial year for many cultures. Hesiod, the Greek poet writing in the 8th century BCE, used the Pleiades as seasonal markers in his poem Works and Days, advising farmers to begin their harvest when the Pleiades rose and to start plowing when they set. The cluster functioned as a celestial almanac. The brightest star in Taurus is Aldebaran, a striking orange-red giant whose name derives from the Arabic for the follower, so called because it appears to follow the Pleiades across the sky as the night progresses. Aldebaran is approximately 65 light-years from Earth and is roughly 44 times larger than our Sun. Its deep orange color is visible to the naked eye on a clear night, and it has been a navigational and seasonal reference point for sailors and farmers for thousands of years. Aldebaran forms the gleaming eye of the bull in the sky's mythology. Aldebaran appears to sit within the V-shaped Hyades cluster, the nearest open star cluster to Earth at about 153 light-years away. However, Aldebaran is actually a foreground star, only about half as distant as the Hyades, and it merely appears to be part of the cluster from our vantage point. The Hyades are genuine siblings, a group of several hundred stars born from the same cloud of gas and dust roughly 625 million years ago. In Greek mythology, they were the daughters of Atlas and half-sisters of the Pleiades, placed in the sky as a group just as their sisters were. At the other tip of Taurus stands one of the sky's most extraordinary objects, though it is invisible to the naked eye. This is the Crab Nebula, the remnant of a massive star that exploded in a catastrophic supernova in the year 1054 CE. The explosion was so brilliant that Chinese and Arab astronomers recorded seeing a new star appear in this location bright enough to be visible in broad daylight for 23 days. Today, the Crab Nebula is a cloud of expanding gas and dust roughly 11 light-years across, and at its heart pulses a neutron star, the collapsed core of the original star, spinning about 30 times per second and emitting beams of radiation with a precision that rivals the most accurate atomic clocks ever built. Part 3, Gemini, the Twins. From the powerful solitude of the bull, we step into one of the Zodiac's most sociable and human figures. Gemini, the Twins, is anchored by two of the brightest stars in the winter sky, Castor and Pollux, shining side by side with a gentle, balanced symmetry that has made them unmistakable to observers since antiquity. These two stars are the heads of the celestial twins, and they stand out so clearly that virtually every culture that developed a constellation in this region of the sky saw a pair of figures. The Greek myth attached to Gemini is among the richest in classical literature. Castor and Pollux were the Dioscuri, the divine twins, sons of the Spartan queen Leda. Their parentage, however, was complicated in the way that Greek divine genealogy often was. Pollux was said to be the son of Zeus, who visited Leda in the form of a swan, and was therefore immortal. Castor was the son of Leda's human husband Tyndareus, and was therefore mortal. Despite this difference, the two brothers were inseparable. They were celebrated heroes, famous for their roles in the voyage of the Argonauts, their skill in boxing and horsemanship, and their protection of sailors during storms at sea. When Castor was killed in battle, Pollux was inconsolable. He could not bear to accept immortality while his brother lay in the underworld, and he prayed to Zeus to let him share his immortality with Castor. Zeus granted this wish in the form of an unusual compromise. The brothers would alternate between Olympus and the underworld, spending one day among the gods and the next in the realm of the dead. They were never both in the same place at the same time, but they were never permanently parted. Zeus later placed them in the sky together as the twin stars that bear their names, a memorial to their extraordinary devotion. The two stars themselves, despite appearing similar to the eye, are very different in nature. Pollux is an orange giant approximately 34 light-years from Earth and about 9 times the diameter of the Sun. In 2006, astronomers confirmed that Pollux hosts a planet, a gas giant roughly 2.5 times the mass of Jupiter. This made Pollux one of the first giant stars confirmed to have a planetary companion. Castor, meanwhile, appears as a single point of light to the naked eye but is in fact a system of 6 stars, 3 pairs of binary stars all gravitationally bound to one another and orbiting around a common center of mass. What looks to the eye like one star is actually a family of 6. Gemini contains one of the sky's most beautiful annual meteor showers, the Geminids, which peak each year around the 13th of December. Unlike most meteor showers, which originate from the debris trails left by comets, the Geminids come from an asteroid called 3200 Phaeton. As Earth passes through the trail of particles shed by this asteroid, the particles burn up in our atmosphere, producing bright, often colorful streaks of light that appear to radiate outward from a point near Castor and Pollux. At their peak, the Geminids can produce up to 120 meteors per hour under ideal conditions, making this one of the most prolific meteor showers of the year. The Sun passes through Gemini during the months of June and July, which in the ancient world corresponded with the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. For a period in the ancient past, the solstice actually fell within Gemini, lending this already significant constellation even greater calendrical importance. The summer solstice was a major festival date throughout the ancient Mediterranean world, and the bright, welcoming twins presiding over the sky in that season would have been a familiar and beloved sight to anyone who spent time watching the stars. Part 4, Cancer, the Crab. Of all the constellations of the Zodiac, Cancer is the faintest and perhaps the least visually dramatic. Its stars are dim, its outline is indistinct, and even under dark skies it requires some patience to trace its form. Yet Cancer holds a position of genuine astronomical importance, and its history is threaded through with remarkable celestial significance that its modest appearance belies. The name Cancer comes from the Latin for crab, and the Greek name Capricornus carries the same meaning. In the Greek tradition, the crab associated with this constellation earned its place in the sky through a small but loyal act during one of mythology's most famous battles. When the hero Heracles, known to the Romans as Hercules, was fighting the Lernaean Hydra, the monstrous many-headed serpent whose severed heads would regrow 2 for every one cut off, the goddess Hera, who despised Heracles, sent a crab to distract him by pinching at his feet. The crab was ultimately crushed underfoot by the great hero and accomplished nothing of practical consequence. But Hera, moved by the creature's loyalty to her cause, placed it among the stars as a reward for its faithful service. This modest myth suits a modest constellation. But Cancer's astronomical importance derives not from its stars, but from its location on the ecliptic. During the era when the zodiacal system was being formalized by Babylonian and early Greek astronomers, roughly around 1000 BCE, the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, occurred when the Sun was positioned in Cancer. This made Cancer the turnaround point of the year, the place where the Sun reached its maximum northern declination and then began its slow drift back southward. The latitude on Earth directly below this point, where the Sun appears directly overhead at the summer solstice, came to be called the Tropic of Cancer. It retains this name today, even though due to precession the solstice now falls in Gemini. The most celebrated feature within Cancer's boundaries is the beehive cluster, also known as praecipe, Latin for the manger or the crib. This is an open cluster of stars visible to the naked eye as a faint, hazy smudge under good conditions. Ancient astronomers, including Hipparchus and Claudius Ptolemy, noted it as a cloudy star or little mist. On a clear night away from city lights, it resolves into a loose swarm of gentle points of light, which gives it the more poetic name of the beehive. The beehive contains over 1,000 stars, most of them low-mass dwarf stars, though the brightest members are white and orange giants. It sits about 587 light-years from Earth, making it one of the nearer open clusters visible to us, and it is one of the largest and nearest such clusters to our solar system. Galileo, when he turned his early telescope toward this faint smudge in 1610, was able to resolve it into individual stars for the first time, discovering that what the eye saw as haze was actually a swarm of distinct suns. He counted 40 stars in his initial observation, though we now know there are many more. The two brightest stars flanking the beehive were known in antiquity as Asellus Borealis and Asellus Australis, Latin for the northern donkey and the southern donkey. They appear in mythology as the donkeys ridden by the gods Dionysus and Silenus into battle against the Titans. According to the myth, the braying of the donkeys terrified the Titans and helped win the battle for the Olympians. As a reward, the donkeys were placed in the sky flanking the precept, their manger, an arrangement that makes the small constellation feel like a tiny farmyard scene suspended in the heavens. Part 5, Leo, the Lion. As the sky tilts from spring towards summer, we arrive at one of the most recognizable and majestic of all the Zodiac's figures. Leo, the Lion, is one of those rare constellations that actually resembles what it is meant to represent. The arrangement of its stars traces a shape that even a first-time stargazer can see as a lion, with a distinctive curved arc of stars forming the lion's head and mane, and a bright triangle marking its hindquarters and tail. The most prominent feature of Leo's head is a curved line of stars called the sickle, named for its resemblance to the curved blade used for harvesting grain. At the base of the sickle sits Regulus, Leo's alpha star and one of the brightest stars in the entire sky. Regulus has a name that comes from the Latin for little king or prince, a reflection of its ancient association with royalty and rulership across many cultures. In Babylonian astronomy, Regulus was known as Sharu, meaning the king. In Persia, it was one of 4 royal stars, celestial guardians of the 4 directions of the sky, the others being Fomalhaut, Aldebaran, and Antares. The Egyptians oriented certain temple alignments toward Regulus, and in Hindu astronomy it was one of the 27 lunar mansions through which the moon was said to pass. Regulus is a fast-spinning star, rotating so rapidly that its equatorial diameter is about 32% larger than its polar diameter. If Regulus spun just slightly faster, the centrifugal force at its equator would overcome gravity and begin flinging stellar material into space. It is, in a sense, a star living close to the edge of its own structural limits. Regulus is approximately 79 light-years from Earth and is actually a 4-star system, though the other 3 members are distant and faint companions to the brilliant primary. The mythological lion associated with Leo has ancient roots. In Babylonian tradition, the constellation was associated with the sun and with the blazing heat of midsummer, a time when the lion was thought to reign supreme in the heavens just as the sun reached the height of its power. The Greeks connected Leo most strongly with the Nemean lion, the monstrous creature slain by Heracles as the first of his 12 labors. The Nemean lion was no ordinary animal. It was said to have a hide impervious to mortal weapons, making it unkillable by conventional means. Heracles, unable to wound the creature with arrows or sword, wrestled it with his bare hands and ultimately strangled it. After slaying the lion, Heracles used the animal's own claws, the only things sharp enough to pierce its magical hide, to skin it, and he thereafter wore the lion's pelt as his most characteristic attribute. Zeus placed the lion in the stars as a memorial to the labor and to the creature's extraordinary nature. The Nemean lion also gave rise to the Nemean Games, one of the 4 great Panhellenic athletic festivals of ancient Greece, held in the valley near the site where Heracles performed his first labor. Leo is also the radiant point for the Leonid meteor shower, which occurs each year in November when Earth passes through the debris trail left by the comet Tempel-Tuttle. In most years, the Leonids produce a modest shower of about 15 meteors per hour, but every 33 years, when Tempel-Tuttle passes close to the sun and sheds a fresh stream of debris, the Leonids can explode into a full meteor storm. During the Great Leonid Storm of 1833, observers across North America reported seeing tens of thousands of meteors per hour, a spectacle so overwhelming that many people who witnessed it believed the sky was falling. The event prompted serious scientific interest in meteor showers and helped establish the connection between comets and these celestial displays. Part 6, Virgo, the Maiden. Continuing our journey along the ecliptic, we arrive at the largest constellation in the Zodiac and the second largest in the entire sky. Virgo, the Maiden, is a sprawling figure that covers an enormous region of sky, stretching across roughly 1,300 square degrees. Her most important star, Spica, is one of the brightest stars visible from Earth, and it has played a fascinating role in the history of astronomy that goes far beyond its merely being the tail of a celestial ear of wheat. Virgo has been identified with a wide range of female figures across different cultures and eras, but in Greek tradition she was most consistently associated with Demeter, the goddess of the harvest, or with Persephone, her daughter. The mythology surrounding Virgo connects beautifully to the seasons she marks. Virgo was prominent in the spring and summer sky, and in Greek myth Demeter's joy at the return of Persephone from the underworld each spring is what causes the earth to flower and bear fruit. When Persephone descends back to Hades each autumn, Demeter's grief withdraws warmth from the world and winter arrives. The maiden in the sky carrying her sheaf of wheat was a celestial embodiment of this seasonal story. In Babylonian astronomy, the constellation was associated with the goddess Shala, a deity of grain and storms, and the association with grain and agriculture is consistent across many of the oldest descriptions of this figure in the sky. The star Spica, which represents the sheaf of grain or the ear of wheat in Virgo's hand, derives its name from the Latin for spike or ear of grain, and it has been known as a grain star across multiple traditions. Spica itself is a remarkable object. It is roughly 250 light-years from Earth and is actually a binary star, 2 hot blue-white stars orbiting each other every 4 days and holding each other so close that they are gravitationally distorted into elongated, egg-like shapes rather than spheres. The primary star of the pair is about 10 times the mass of our Sun and will likely end its existence as a neutron star or possibly a black hole after a supernova explosion some tens of millions of years from now. Spica played a central role in one of the most important astronomical discoveries of antiquity. Around 127 BCE, the Greek astronomer Hipparchus compared his careful measurements of Spica's position in the sky to earlier measurements made by the astronomer Timacharis roughly 150 years before. He found that Spica's position had shifted by about 2 degrees relative to the equinox point. This was a staggering discovery. It meant that the equinox itself was slowly moving relative to the background stars, a phenomenon now known as the precession of the equinoxes. Precession is caused by the slow wobble of Earth's rotational axis, which traces a circle in space over a period of approximately 26,000 years, somewhat like the wobble of a spinning top that is beginning to slow down. This wobble causes the equinox point to drift slowly backward through the zodiac at a rate of about 1 degree every 72 years, completing a full circuit of the sky over those 26,000 years. Hipparchus calculated this rate with impressive accuracy from nothing more than careful naked-eye measurements of stellar positions, a genuine triumph of ancient observational astronomy. Without Spica, and without Virgo as a reference, this discovery might have come centuries later. The Virgo cluster, one of the nearest and richest galaxy clusters in the cosmos, lies within the boundaries of this constellation. The cluster contains at least 1,300 to 300 galaxies, each a system of hundreds of billions of stars, gathered together by gravity into a vast community roughly 65 million light-years from Earth. It is the nearest large galaxy cluster to our own local group of galaxies and helps anchor the larger supercluster structure of which our Milky Way is a small and relatively peripheral member. That so much cosmic structure lies behind the ancient figure of the grain goddess is one of those wonderful coincidences that astronomy constantly offers. Part 7, Libra, the Scales. Libra is in some ways the most distinctive of the zodiac constellations because it is the only one in the 12 that is not an animal or a person. The scales are an object, and this distinction carries significant historical and symbolic weight. The association of the scales with balance and justice made Libra a figure of great moral and cosmological importance in the ancient world. In Greek tradition, Libra's stars were originally considered to be the claws of the neighboring constellation Scorpius. The two brightest stars of Libra still bear names that reflect this older identification. Zubin el-Janubi, the name of Libra's second brightest star, derives from the Arabic for the southern claw, and Zubin Esquimali, the brightest, means the northern claw. This linguistic fossil tells us something important about how the sky's organization has shifted over time, with different cultures drawing the boundaries of constellations differently and sometimes reassigning stars from one figure to another. The Romans were largely responsible for the current identification of this region as scales rather than scorpion claws. Roman astronomers and writers connected the scales to the figure of Astrea, a goddess of justice who was identified with Virgo, the constellation immediately to the west. In this reading, Virgo herself held the scales of justice in her outstretched hand, weighing human souls or deeds. The scales were said to represent the balance of day and night at the autumnal equinox, the moment in autumn when light and dark are briefly equal before darkness takes the upper hand as winter approaches. When the Romans formalized this region as an independent constellation, they were encoding a cosmological idea about justice and balance directly into the sky's architecture. The autumnal equinox, like its spring counterpart, is one of only 2 moments in the year when the sun crosses the celestial equator and day and night are of equal length worldwide. In antiquity, this crossing occurred within the boundaries of Libra, lending the constellation's theme of balance and immediate astronomical relevance. The sky was literally in balance when the sun stood in the scales. Over time, due to precession, the equinox has since shifted into Virgo, but the symbolic association between Libra and cosmic equilibrium has persisted in cultural memory. Libra contains a star of considerable interest to modern astronomy, though it is invisible to the naked eye. Gliese 581 is a small, dim red dwarf star located only about 20 light-years from Earth. Because of its proximity, it has been studied intensively, and over the years astronomers have confirmed multiple planets in orbit around it. Among these, one attracted significant attention when it was announced in 2010 as a candidate planet in the star's habitable zone, the range of orbital distances where liquid water could theoretically exist on a rocky surface. Later analysis cast doubt on the reality of this particular planet, but the system remains one of the most closely examined in the neighborhood of our Sun, And red dwarfs like Gliese 581 are now considered among the most promising targets in the search for potentially life-bearing worlds. Zodiac, Libra's brightest star, has a color that has intrigued observers for centuries. Several ancient and medieval astronomers described it as having a faint greenish tint, which would make it essentially unique among naked-eye stars, as no other star in the sky is generally described as green. Most astronomers today classify it as a blue-white star, and the perception of green may be a result of contrast effects or individual variation in color perception. Whether genuinely green or not, this question has made Zodiac a star that rewards careful personal observation, one of those small mysteries in the sky that invites you to look for yourself and decide. Part 8. Scorpius, the Scorpion. Now we arrive at perhaps the most dramatically beautiful constellation in the entire zodiac. Scorpius, the Scorpion, is one of those constellations that is immediately recognizable as its namesake even to the most casual observer. Its stars trace a vivid, curving shape, a compact head and body tapering into a graceful curving tail that ends in a distinctive upward sting. It is a striking figure, and it presides over some of the richest and most luminous regions of the Milky Way visible from Earth. The heart of the Scorpion is Aries, one of the largest and most luminous stars visible to the naked eye. Aries is a red supergiant, a star so enormous that if it were placed at the center of our solar system, its outer surface would extend past the orbit of Mars and approach the orbit of Jupiter. It is approximately 700 times the diameter of our Sun and roughly 100,000 times as luminous. Aries lies roughly 550 light-years from Earth and burns with a deep orange-red color that is clearly visible on a clear night. Its name means rival of Aries, Aries being the Greek god of war and the planet Mars, because Aries' color and brightness in the sky were thought to rival the appearance of the red planet. Aries is approaching the end of its stellar life. Stars of this mass and luminosity consume their nuclear fuel with extraordinary speed compared to smaller stars like our Sun, and Aries is expected to exhaust its core fuel and explode as a supernova within the next 100,000 years or so, a brief moment in cosmic terms. When that happens, it will shine in Earth's sky with a brilliance comparable to a crescent moon, bright enough to cast shadows at night and visible in broad daylight. The resulting stellar remnant will likely be a neutron star or possibly, if the core is massive enough, a black hole. In Greek mythology, Scorpius is forever linked to Orion, though the two constellations are never in the sky at the same time from most locations on Earth. As Scorpius rises in the east, Orion sets in the west, and as Orion rises, Scorpius disappears. Several myths explain this eternal separation. In one version, the Scorpion was sent by the goddess Gaia, the Earth itself, to kill Orion after the great hunter boasted that he would slay all the animals of the world. The Scorpion succeeded, and Zeus placed both figures in the sky on opposite sides, ensuring they would never meet again. In another version, Artemis, goddess of the hunt, either sent the Scorpion herself out of jealousy or placed Orion in the sky after his death to honor him, arranging the sky so that his celestial form would never need to face his killer. Scorpius sits along one of the most spectacular stretches of the Milky Way. The region toward the constellation's tail points roughly toward the central bulge of our galaxy, the dense, star-packed heart of the Milky Way. This direction is rich with open clusters, globular clusters, and nebulae. The region contains the Butterfly Cluster, also known as Messier 6, a loose open cluster of about 80 stars whose arrangement resembles a butterfly with wings spread, and the Ptolemy Cluster, Messier 7, a large and bright open cluster that Claudius Ptolemy catalogued in the 2nd century CE, making it one of the earliest recorded deep sky observations in history. The Babylonians associated this constellation with death and the underworld in their cosmological thinking. The Scorpion was a creature of darkness and hidden places, and its appearance in the sky during the late summer months, when the sun's strength was declining and the days were shortening, made it a natural symbol of the season's turn toward darkness. The Scorpion's annual return to prominence in the evening sky was read as a sign of the approaching end of the warm season, and agricultural communities throughout the ancient Near East timed their preparations for winter accordingly. Part 9. Sagittarius, the Archer. Leaving the Scorpion behind, we travel east along the ecliptic into a constellation that offers a view of extraordinary cosmic significance. Sagittarius, the Archer, is typically depicted as a centaur drawing a bow, though the Babylonian tradition saw a simpler figure, a human archer or a god with a bow, without the horse body of the Greek centaur. Whatever the figure, the arrow is aimed directly at the heart of the Scorpion, and Sagittarius permanently holds this position of aim, frozen in a moment of perpetual readiness. But the most important thing about Sagittarius is not its mythological figure. It is what lies behind it. The direction from Earth toward the center of the Milky Way galaxy, the dense nuclear hub around which our entire galaxy rotates, lies within the boundaries of Sagittarius. This means that when you look at Sagittarius on a summer night from a dark location, you are looking toward the galactic core, through the thickest, most star-dense region of our galaxy's disk. The result is a breathtaking concentration of glowing nebulae, star clusters, and the combined light of hundreds of billions of stars packed into the galactic center. At the precise center of the Milky Way lies a supermassive black hole with a mass approximately 4 million times that of our Sun. This object, known to astronomers as SGR star, is too small and too obscured by the vast clouds of gas and dust between us and the galactic center to be seen with optical telescopes, but radio and infrared observatories have mapped it with remarkable precision. Astronomers have tracked the orbits of individual stars moving around this invisible central mass, watching them swing through tight curves at a significant fraction of the speed of light. And from these orbits they have calculated the mass of the black hole with great accuracy. It is a remarkable piece of detective work, using the motions of visible stars to reveal the nature of an invisible and formidable object at the heart of our galaxy. The rich star fields of Sagittarius contain some of the most studied nebulae in the sky. The Lagoon Nebula, known as Messier 8, is a stellar nursery visible to the naked eye as a fuzzy patch of light, spanning about 110 light-years and lying roughly 4,100 light-years from Earth. It is actively forming new stars, and images taken with modern telescopes reveal enormous pillars of gas and dust being sculpted by the radiation and stellar winds of hot young stars born within them. The Trifid Nebula, Messier 20, sits nearby and gets its name from the dark dust lanes that divide its glowing gas into 3 lobes, giving it an unusual and distinctive appearance. In Greek tradition, the centaur depicted in Sagittarius is sometimes identified as Crotus, the son of Pan and the companion of the Muses on Mount Helicon. Crotus was said to have invented archery and to have entertained the Muses with his skill. He applauded their performances with the rhythmic clapping of hands, which some ancient sources credit him with inventing as well. The Muses petitioned Zeus to place him in the sky in honor of their fondness for him, and Zeus agreed. This makes Sagittarius a relatively gentle figure compared to some of his zodiacal neighbors, a skilled and artistic archer rather than a warrior. The Sagittarius star cloud, sometimes called the Great Sagittarius Star Cloud, is one of the most spectacular sights in the Milky Way as seen with binoculars or a small telescope. It is a dense concentration of stars toward the galactic bulge that shines as a brilliant, unresolved glow to the naked eye on a clear, dark summer night from the southern United States or further south. This particular cloud contains an enormous number of stars packed into a relatively small apparent area of sky, and observing it is as close as the naked eye can come to perceiving the physical density of our galaxy's core region. Part 10. Capricornus, the Sea Goat. Moving along the ecliptic from the Archer, we encounter one of the most ancient and mythologically complex figures in the zodiac. Capricornus, the sea goat, is a hybrid creature, part goat and part fish, and this unusual combination has roots that stretch back to the earliest periods of Mesopotamian civilization, predating the Greeks by thousands of years. In Babylonian and Sumerian tradition, this constellation was associated with the god Enki, a deity of water, wisdom, and creation who was typically depicted as a hybrid creature combining the body of a goat with the tail of a fish. Enki was one of the most important gods of the Mesopotamian pantheon, associated with the deep underground freshwater ocean called the Apsu that ancient Mesopotamian cosmology believed lay beneath the earth. This aquatic association explains the fish tail in the figure's design. The goat portion may relate to the constellation's position in the sky, which in antiquity was associated with the rainy season in Mesopotamia when the sun passed through this region. This area of the sky was sometimes called the sea, and several of its constellations carry water associations, including Aquarius, Pisces Austrinus, and Pisces nearby. The Greek myth most commonly attached to Capricornus involves the god Pan and a spectacular divine panic, literally. During a feast of the gods on the banks of the Nile, the monstrous Typhon, one of the most fearsome creatures in Greek mythology, appeared and threw the assembled Olympians into terror. The gods fled by transforming themselves into animals. Pan jumped into the Nile and attempted to transform himself entirely into a fish, but in his panic the transformation was incomplete. The upper half of his body became a goat, and only the lower half became a fish. Zeus, amused or touched by this endearing catastrophe, immortalized the resulting hybrid shape in the stars. Capricornus is not a visually impressive constellation. Its stars are relatively faint and its outline requires some patience to trace, but one of its stars has a charming quality for naked eye observers. The star Algete, also known as Alpha Capricorni, appears to the naked eye as a white double star, two stars sitting close enough together in the sky to be distinguished as a pair with good eyesight. However, these two stars are not physically related. One of them lies approximately 100 light-years from Earth, and the other is approximately 690 light-years away. They simply happen to lie in nearly the same direction as seen from our vantage point, a coincidental pairing called an optical double. It is a reminder that the sky is a projection, a two-dimensional display of a three-dimensional universe, and appearances can be deeply deceiving. Capricornus holds the distinction of being associated with the winter solstice in an even older astronomical era than Cancer held for the summer solstice. When the zodiacal system was taking shape in the earliest periods of Babylonian and Sumerian astronomy, around 4000 to 3000 BCE, the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, occurred when the sun was positioned in Capricornus. This gave the sea goat a place of solstice significance comparable to the position Cancer held in a later era, and it may help explain why this modest-looking constellation was considered so important across such a wide range of ancient cultures. A constellation marking the darkest point of the year, the annual nadir of the sun's power and the beginning of its slow return, would naturally attract myth and ceremony regardless of how faint its stars might be. Part 11. Aquarius, the Water Bearer. Near the end of our journey through the zodiac, we meet a figure who has poured his water into the cosmos since the earliest civilizations organized the sky. Aquarius, the Water Bearer, is one of the oldest recognized constellations in the human record, with origins in Babylonian astronomy stretching back at least 3,000 years and associations in Sumerian tradition that may be even older. In Babylonian tradition, Aquarius was seen as a figure pouring water from an urn or vase. The constellation sits in a region of the sky the Babylonians called the sea, an expanse of sky occupied by several water-associated figures. The image of a figure pouring water was deeply connected to the rainy season in Mesopotamia, when the sun passed through this region of the sky during the winter months and the rains that watered the Tigris and Euphrates valleys began to fall. In this sense, Aquarius was not merely a figure in the sky. He was the cosmic agent responsible for the rains that made agriculture, and therefore civilization, possible. In Greek mythology, Aquarius is most commonly identified with Ganymede, a young man of extraordinary beauty from the royal family of Troy. Zeus, captivated by Ganymede's appearance, transformed himself into an eagle and carried the young man up to Mount Olympus to serve as cupbearer to the gods. In this role, Ganymede poured nectar and ambrosia for the divine assemblies, and Zeus honored him by placing him in the stars as Aquarius, the celestial water-bearer, with the eagle nearby as Aquila. The myth touches on themes of divine favor, transformation, and immortality that recur throughout Greek cosmological thinking. Another tradition identifies Aquarius with Deucalion, the Greek Noah figure who survived a great flood sent by Zeus to punish humanity. In this reading, the water pouring from Aquarius' urn represents the flood itself, and the figure's placement in the sky is a memorial to that catastrophic event and to Deucalion's survival of it. The flood myth itself likely has roots in the real flooding events that periodically devastated Mesopotamian river valley civilization, and the sky figure of the water pourer may have always carried a dual meaning: the life-giving rains and the catastrophic deluge, two faces of the same elemental force. Aquarius contains two of the most beautiful planetary nebulae visible in the sky. The Saturn Nebula, so named because early telescope observers thought its elongated shape with subtle extensions resembled the planet Saturn with its rings, is the expanding shell of gas expelled by a dying star. The Helix Nebula is the nearest planetary nebula to Earth, lying only about 650 light-years away, and in terms of apparent size as seen from Earth, it is among the largest planetary nebulae in the sky, spanning about 2.5 light-years across. Images of the Helix Nebula show an extraordinary ring of glowing gas, layered in concentric shells of color, with a tiny white dwarf star burning at its center, the spent core of the star that once existed here. It has been called the Eye of God in popular imagination, and the nickname is Apartment. It looks back at you. The annual Eta Aquarid meteor shower, which peaks in early May, is one of two meteor showers associated with the debris trail of Halley's Comet. The meteors appear to radiate outward from a point near the water jar asterism in Aquarius, and they tend to be swift, bright meteors, many leaving persistent glowing trails in their wake. The Eta Aquariids favor observers in the southern hemisphere, where the radiant point rises higher in the sky, but they are visible worldwide and mark one of the year's reliable reminders that our planet is constantly swimming through the debris-laden trail left by one of the solar system's most famous periodic visitors. Part 12, Pisces, the Fish. We conclude our journey through the Zodiac where the great cycle currently begins. Pisces, the fish, holds a special place in modern astronomical reckoning because it is here, in the dim and scattered stars of this large but faint constellation, that the vernal equinox currently lies. Due to precession, the equinox has slowly drifted out of Aries and into Pisces over the past 2,000 years, and it will remain here for roughly another 600 years before continuing its slow westward drift into Aquarius. Pisces is traditionally depicted as two fish connected by a cord or ribbon, swimming in opposite directions. This is an image of duality, of movement and opposition, that has resonated across many interpretive traditions. The two fish appear in Babylonian astronomy as the tails, likely referring to a tail or boundary marker rather than actual fish tails, and the constellation was associated in Babylonian tradition with the last month of the year, the final section of the ecliptic before the cycle began again with the spring equinox. The Greek myth most often associated with Pisces resembles the story of Pan and Capricornus and may share a common origin. During the same divine panic triggered by Typhon at the Nile feast, the goddess Aphrodite and her son Eros leaped into the river and transformed themselves into fish to escape the monster. To avoid losing each other in the water, they tied themselves together with a cord. Zeus later placed them in the sky as the two fish of Pisces, bound together, a monument to maternal love and mutual protection in the face of overwhelming terror. The stars of Pisces are generally faint, and the constellation requires dark skies and some patience to trace its outline. Its brightest star is Eta Piscium, a yellow giant roughly 294 light-years from Earth. The constellation's most visually notable feature is a roughly circular asterism called the Circlet of Pisces, a small ring of stars representing the head of the western fish. This tidy circle is one of the easier parts of the constellation to locate and serves as a useful anchor point for finding the rest of the figure. Despite its faint stars, Pisces is the host of the current vernal equinox, and this position gives it a significance in modern astronomical coordinates that belies its visual modesty. The Sun currently crosses the celestial equator moving northward while positioned against the background stars of Pisces each year around the 20th or 21st of March. This is the moment the modern world calls the beginning of spring, the moment astronomical spring begins in the northern hemisphere. For the next several centuries, spring will begin in Pisces until precession carries the equinox onward into Aquarius, completing one more chapter in the 26,000-year cycle of celestial drift that Hipparchus first detected in the light of Spica, in the outstretched hand of the grain goddess in the neighboring constellation to the east. What is remarkable about Pisces is that its faintness somehow makes its current role more poignant. The most important point in the ancient zodiacal calendar, the point that defines the beginning of the year, the zero of the celestial coordinate system, the hinge of the seasons, currently rests in one of the sky's quietest, least ostentatious figures. There are no brilliant stars here, no dramatic mythological battles, no scorpion stings or lion's manes. Just two fish, tied together, swimming gently through the darkness, holding between them the invisible point where spring begins. The Zodiac, considered as a whole, is one of humanity's most extraordinary intellectual and cultural achievements. 12 figures drawn across the sky, selected from the backdrop of thousands of stars because they mark the sun's annual path. 12 constellations that served as a celestial calendar, a seasonal almanac, a religious framework, and a philosophical system for civilizations separated by vast distances of geography and centuries of time. The bull of Taurus was plowing Mesopotamian fields and marking the spring equinox thousands of years before the first Greek poets set the myth of Europa to verse. The scorpion of Scorpius was rising in Babylonian evening skies to signal the end of summer long before Homer described the death of Orion. These figures are older than most of recorded history, and they are still there, available to anyone willing to go outside on a clear night, let their eyes adjust to the dark, and look up. Part 13, The Sun's Great Highway. We have traveled the full length of the ecliptic now, from the golden ram of Aries to the quiet fish of Pisces, and before we close, it is worth stepping back to look at the road itself. The path the sun traces across the sky each year, the one that carries it through all 12 of the figures we have explored tonight, has a name. Astronomers call it the ecliptic, and understanding it reveals why the zodiac exists at all. Imagine standing on the roof of a building and watching the sun rise each morning for a full year. You would notice something subtle but unmistakable. The sun does not always rise at exactly the same point on the horizon. It shifts. In summer, it rises in the northeast and sets in the northwest. In winter, it rises in the southeast and sets in the southwest. This gentle drift back and forth is the sun tracing out its apparent path across the celestial sphere as Earth travels around it over the course of a year. The ecliptic is not a straight line across the sky. It is a great circle, a path inclined at roughly 23.5 degrees relative to Earth's equator, projected outward onto the sky. This tilt is the same tilt responsible for our seasons, and it is why the sun appears to wander through different regions of the sky as the months pass. The 12 constellations of the zodiac are simply the constellations that happen to sit along this path. They are the backdrop against which the sun appears to travel, month by month, as Earth completes its yearly orbit. The word zodiac itself comes to us through Latin from the Greek word zodiakos, meaning a circle or belt of figures, which in turn derives from zoion, meaning animal or creature. This is telling, because the majority of the zodiac's constellations are animals. Of the 12 classical figures, 8 are creatures, a proportion that reflects just how deeply the ancient world associated the sky's great highway with the living world below. The Babylonians were arguably the first to formalize the zodiac as we know it. By around the 5th century BCE, Babylonian astronomers had divided the ecliptic into 12 equal sections of 30 degrees each, one for each month of the year. This division was an act of intellectual brilliance, a way of using the sky as a reliable calendar. Each section was assigned to a constellation that the sun would appear to pass through during that month. The result was a celestial map of time, 12 landmarks arranged in a circle, telling anyone who could read the sky exactly where they were in the year. It is worth noting that this Babylonian system was built on centuries of even older Mesopotamian star lore. Many of the individual constellations had been recognized and named by Sumerian astronomers long before Babylon rose to prominence. The zodiac as a unified, organized system was a Babylonian achievement, but the individual stories and images embedded in it were far older, reaching back into the deepest layers of recorded human thought. The constellations of the zodiac are not equally spaced in the sky in terms of the actual stars that form them. Some are large, some are small, and the sun does not spend an equal amount of time in each one. But the Babylonian system was not meant to be a precise physical description. It was a practical tool, a way of organizing time and tracking celestial events. Think of it the way we think of a clock face. The numbers on a clock are evenly spaced not because time actually behaves that way, but because even spacing makes the clock useful. The zodiac's 12 equal divisions served the same purpose, a beautifully elegant solution to the very practical problem of marking the year. The sun's path through the zodiac takes one full year because it takes Earth one full year to complete one orbit around the sun. As we move around the sun, our perspective on the distant background stars shifts, and the sun appears to slowly drift eastward through the constellations at roughly 1 degree per day. It rises each morning in a slightly different position relative to the background stars, slowly working its way through all 12 signs over the course of 365 days. This celestial clockwork was one of the most reliable rhythms available to ancient peoples, and they used it to plant crops, hold festivals, conduct religious ceremonies, and organize their entire civic lives around the turning of the sky. What makes the zodiac so enduring as a concept is that it was born not from fantasy but from genuine, careful astronomy. The 12 constellations that compose it were not chosen arbitrarily. They were chosen because they marked the ecliptic, because they tracked the sun's real path, and because they divided the year in a way that was practically useful. Whatever stories were later built around them, and there are extraordinary stories indeed, the zodiac began as a scientific achievement, a monument to the human capacity for patient observation and systematic thought. And on that note, we come to the end of our journey through the zodiac. 12 constellations, each carrying thousands of years of human observation, myth, and wonder. From the golden ram of Aries marking the spring equinox to the quiet fish of Pisces currently holding that same point as precession slowly turns the celestial clock. From the blazing heart of Leo and the orange fire of Antares to the gentle haze of the beehive cluster in Cancer. From Babylon to Athens, from the Tigris to the Nile, human beings have been reading these same patterns of light for longer than writing has existed, and they still reward every careful gaze we give them. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Nocturnal Astronomer. Whether you made it all the way through wide awake or drifted somewhere along the ecliptic, I hope the stars were good company. Until next time.